Welcome back, everybody, for another edition of Narrative, The Road to 100 with Black AI Media. I'm joined by an amazing couple, power couple in the space and when it comes to technology and also in the world of education. And when I say the world of education, I do mean the world. We're talking global. So I want to welcome William and Aida Jackson. Thank you both for joining. Share what you're working on, the amazing efforts that you've been putting in for some time. But I want to just open up space first, get some introductions, and both of you just jump in and tell us who you are, what you got going on, and then we'll go into some of our questions.
All right. Well, we are William and Aida Jackson, obviously, and we are married. We've been married. This year will be 4 years. 4 years. So we're still considered newlyweds. And our passion for education and learning and technology and family and our faith brought us together. And we just enjoy learning and growing and contributing to the global community that we're part of. And we'll touch on that a little bit in our conversation. But it's just a blessing to be able to have someone in your life that shares the same concepts and ideas about helping our community to grow and develop in this age of technological innovation and creation and creativity and imagination. And we just have a great time feeding off of each other's energy and helping each other, discover on our path and as we're growing.
So who are you?
I'm William Jackson. And this is Mike.
So I'm Aida Jackson. As my husband said, we've been together 7 years. So in the 7 years we've been together, we literally have gone around the world, whether it be virtually or in person. We met years before we ever started dating. We connected then, but we just didn't connect on a romantic level. We worked together. We knew each other. Yeah. In these 7 years, we've been really passionate about teaching technology. My background is not in technology. I'm actually an artist. And so together we are the extreme team. So we do STEM and STEAM. And I'm the giant A in the STEAM.
And I'm the little ST.
But we both knew that we had a passion for writing. We were both bloggers. We both love technology. The way I got into technology, my mom, when we were teenagers, she brought home a computer and she asked us how to turn it on. And, us being teenagers, we laughed at her like, haha, you bought a computer, you don't know how to turn it on. And my mom was like, all right, let me show you. And she joined a computer club, local computer club. And back then it was like K-Pro computers. They were like those little things. She was taking them apart, building them, rebuilding them. Before my mom passed away, my mom had her own computer store where she built custom computers. And that's how I got into technology. She would build the computers and then I would help install programs. I would help create the flyers. So I got into desktop publishing. So I fell in love with technology through my mom. So that's how I got involved in technology. The education piece came in when I started doing nonprofit work and realized the deficit in our communities. I work with the 7 hardest hit communities here in Jacksonville, and there's such a deficit when it comes to education and technology, especially. So when I met my husband, it was a great fit. So yeah, I'll let him talk about him.
But we have a similar story. Interesting. My mom was a high school teacher, a business teacher back in Camden High School in Camden, New Jersey. And just to date myself, she was a business teacher, but she started off teaching shorthand. So that was a fast track for the business courses that she and other teachers were teaching to give students that were getting ready to graduate high school, open employment opportunities through shorthand and other business tools. Interesting enough, my mom, she was so creative in her works that the administration used her classroom as a model classroom. So when typewriters started, the manual typewriters started, they brought those into her room. And she brought myself, my brother, and my sister in to set up her classroom. So unbeknownst to us at that time, she was teaching us how to manage technology even at a lower level. Then when they brought in electric typewriters, then we set them up and set up the typewriters and how they worked and plugged them in. She taught us. The next thing you know, here they bring in computers. And who did she bring in to learn about the computers and set them up? We did. So as the progression, continued to travel forward, we were learning so much that we didn't realize how even today this influenced our growth. And Aida and I talk about this quite often, how our moms influenced us and encouraged us about the love and the use of tech, but also the benefits that what we learn can help our local community, state community and international community that we work with today. And I think that's an example for those that are listening, when you're experiencing and when you're learning, take the time to teach your children how to use different forms of tech, because it will influence them in the future. You never really know, but take the time to be patient with them and talk with them and guide them and help them. Our grandkids, even though they're young, we're still talking to them and showing them on the phones and the laptops and stuff, little things that they can do. And it's just phenomenal at the youth and teens today, how much they know, but directing them into making that purposeful and productive for the future.
Well, shout outs to both of you for that, first and foremost. And shout outs to all the moms, though. Like that, there's a common thread, even for myself, reflecting on my mom, rest her soul, like the value systems and the importance and the appreciation of learning, right? Being instilled and what that does for us later on in life is something that we can't measure. So thank you for both sharing, your stories and really highlighting how that impacted you. So I appreciate that. And I want to start, before we get into, a little bit more of our questions and hear more, I think a little bit digging into your backgrounds and your work. For both of you all, I want to ask our kind of driving question for narrative, the road to 100, which is, what does narrative mean to you?
I think for me, narrative means the story that you create about your journey in life. And to be transparent, I was born in 1962. So I grew up with Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Dr. King, so many other great people in history that were, we see the fruits of their labor, but the emphasis was on what can you do to improve your community? What can you do to help your community? But not fall into the narrative of main media or stereotypes or just open racism, because it's incumbent upon us for each generation that we leave a narrative of creativity, imagination, productivity, success, excellence, and just helping people to grow. And I always reflect that Aida's Afro-Latina. So she's Puerto Rican, I'm African-American, but our narratives combine together because of our past history of our cultures, which in a lot of ways blend, and people don't realize that or understand that. But our creative energies and our synergies across history, we are learning now more and more how much our cultures have contributed to the United States and just developing this nation and this country. And there's nothing, and I'm trying to make sure I say this correctly, everything that we enjoy in our lives in this country were either created, inspired by our cultures. People have to understand that and realize that. So you cannot accept the fact that, you hear a narrative and every once in a while that people are lazy, they're unimaginative, they're not productive. But you look at the things that we enjoy in this nation now, and they come from Afro-Latinas, Latinas, Hispanics, African-Americans, people of color and culture. And we have to make sure we teach that, but also teach it showing the benefits of what was brought and what was provided. For me personally, teaching in the community, but teaching the fun part about, not just the sterile traditional, but technology can be fun because you can be creative. And I always, tease a little bit that I don't have a creative bone in my body except for what Aida put in me. So it's like now I'm, building metaverse sites and blogging and writing. And she's contributed to that because I see the creativeness and the importance and value of it. And just like you were saying about our moms, those different aspects contribute to who we are even today. Even at 62, we talk about, and I'm 62, Aida's much younger. She's like 25, 26. But we talk, a lot about what our parents put in us to be a benefit to the community. And we like to share that your name, goes ahead of you in so many ways that you want the narrative to be something positive and productive and encouraging. So that way, before you actually get to where you're going to, your name carries weight to like, oh, this person is working to contribute, benefiting people, not just in their local community, but globally and internationally.
So for me, I would have to say that for me, a narrative, it's the thread that pulls us together. And it could also tear us apart. And for even on a personal level, I tell people I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. What I saw around me did not indicate where I would be today. I had to tell myself a different story. And my story was based on like what he was saying, my culture, my people, where I come from. You know, a lot of people don't know there's a lot of colorism on the island. So I had to learn about my African roots and be proud of that. There are a lot of us who especially are embracing that. Although I'm 100% Puerto Rican, clearly I have African blood. Right? That's me. When people look at me, you know, you can see the African in me, and I had to learn to love that part of myself and understand that part of myself and understand what that meant for me, and also just even what my story meant. Like, what did it mean? My grandmother in Puerto Rico, they had a homesteading program where they gave you all the tools and they gave you the land, but you had to build your own house. And my grandmother said, okay, she did it. She went and got the tools and the wood and all that stuff. And they found a plot and on the mountain and she built the house that's still there today. So I had to focus on that part of the story, not the part because unfortunately when immigrants come here, and again, I tell people Puerto Ricans may be Americans, but they're treated like immigrants, no different than any other immigrants that come here. My grandparents on both sides came through Ellis Island. So they had to make a way here. And we already know that it's not always easy to make a way here in the beginning. So I had to learn from their resilience, right? So their story. So for me now as a teacher and a coach and an instructor, the very first thing I want to know from my kids, from my adults, is what's your story? I want to know where you come from. I want to know what you're about. And not only the story from your past, but what story are you, like what William was saying, what story are you creating for yourself for your future? Because sometimes we create the wrong story based on what we think it's supposed to be or what someone told us it's supposed to be. And that's my goal as an educator, as a coach, to help people recreate their story based on because you can glean the beautiful things, right? There's maybe a lot of ugly things, but I promise you in all of that, there's some beautiful things. Because if you're standing here, there's resilience, there's perseverance. So if you're standing here and talking to me, there's something more, and we can glean from that and now create a future story that will tie all of that together. And just like what you said, you know, my mom, his mom, your mom, we already knew your mom's story, right? So even that brings people together. So that's what it means to me. It's the potential to tie us together. It's the potential to pull us apart on a personal level and a global level.
Yeah, and I love and appreciate the idea around that thread that weaves people together. And you think about a sweater. Once you get that one thread and you keep pulling it, inevitably it could be nothing left. So I think that's powerful. And I wanted to think a little bit more talking about your experiences. We heard some of your background, kind of how you got started, even just initially with technology and computers, mentioning both of your mothers and how they exposed you. But thinking about now where we are, we have MetaverseWP and Love Built Life. And then there's this mashup of amazing things that you all are doing, thinking about the metaverse space and even now, of course, with infusing some of the AI. Can you talk about how did that leap into this whole immersive world begin for each of you and also kind of build into what you're doing today, in tandem and even independently?
Well, she always laughs at me when I say this, but so I'll start off this way. So for the men and young men that are listening, okay, when your spouse or girlfriend or partner or whoever comes to you and just talks about an idea about a different type of technology, I encourage you to always listen and balance how you can take that, even if you can't do it at that time, and implement it or integrate it into what you're doing. And the reason I said that back in 2021, we were learning about AI and the metaverse, and we were on several platforms learning. And Aida came to me one day and said, hey, there's this wonderful platform called Spatial. There's another platform called Clubhouse. You can learn and do all kind of things. And honestly, being a guy, I was already doing a lot of stuff. I was like, I'm already doing a lot. I don't have time for another, thing and da-da-da. But I was listening to her, and then I started watching her use them and apply them. And I was like, oh, these are like really, really cool. And I have to give her props because she did teach me about the internet, NFTs, spatial, and other areas of tech. But it was incumbent on me to figure out how to integrate that into what I was doing and take the time to do it. So, gentlemen, when your other your partner and comes to you with different ideas, just chill out and listen first. Because if it had not been for what Aida was sharing with me in a loving manner, she wasn't pushing anything, I would not have learned what I've learned about NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and the blockchain. I would not have learned that, programs like Spatial, where you can build a business on it. And it's not just about gaming, but it's integration of tech and web development. So in our journey with being part of the WordPress community, but also being CEOs of our companies, we take each bit and piece of technology and blend it together. So we create curriculums. We've taught in Africa online. We've taught in India. We've taught in Canada, in person, Central America, in person and virtual and remotely. So we take these tools to build these curriculums to help youth, teens, young adults, but also to show businesses how you can blend these technologies and have a symmetry and a visual element that people can see and interact with. And for me, it was a blessing that if the light bulb went off and it finally clicked in my brain, hey, we can create our businesses together. We can create an opportunity to teach around the world, but also show that no matter what you're doing, no matter the field, you have to learn and you have to grow. You have to have that mindset of being a global learner, that we are all tied together in some form or fashion with information, with technological skills, and with business. So seeing that and looking at taking those and applying it to teaching kids in Africa or teaching young people in Central America, building on that collectiveness, because one of the things we have to remember is one day with our global connections, even if somebody may be 1,000 miles away, they may one day be your employee. They may one day be a customer, a client, intern. So you can never discount how technology can take you on a journey. When I created MetaverseWP, it was only because of Aida showing me and teaching me about spatial. And it's like, hey, Darren, this is Metaverse site and, you can build on it and you can create. There are elements of gaming, but you take that idea and move from gaming to business applications and education. So, I'm real appreciative and blessed because and I share that, because I'm always joking around and stuff like that. But, when it comes down to it, that person that you share your life with has a vested interest in both of you growing and being successful. So that's important.
So, well, the truth is I've always been a gamer. When I was young, that's when arcades came out. I tell people I'll date myself. My very first game was Pong. I would spend hours, my dad got the Atari and Pong for hours. And so when arcades came out, I would take my allowance and go straight to the arcade. Even when I was working, my little lunch money that my parents would give me would be like my lunch break. I'd be in the arcade. So I've always been a gamer, always been really deep into tech. That way, all my girls are gamers. I have 4 girls, they're all gamers too. What happened was in 2020, when Clubhouse came around and I saw this platform and I saw what it could do, and, I kept telling him, honey, you should join Clubhouse. I have an invitation for you. And he's like, no, I got too much going on. I'm like, no, I haven't, well, just join. But, I will say this, like he was talking to the gentleman, I would speak to the ladies. If you're in a relationship, especially long-term marriage relationship, that's part of our goal, right? We want to see our husband succeed. I wanted to see him succeed. I saw what could happen for him on this platform. So I didn't push it, but I did let him know, like, hey, I think this would be a great idea. And I just did it myself. And I just learned as much as I could so that when he was ready to jump on, I could show him how it would be a benefit. So then, so while we were on Clubhouse, that's how we met you. And we met others. And so while we were on Clubhouse, then we started working with was it the Black Meta Group? What was it?
Black Metaverse.
Was it Black Metaverse Group? And so they were going to do this whole big thing for Black History Month, and they had an art contest. And back then it wasn't spatial, it was all space VR. And I won in the contest, and she was like, hey, I'm going to put your art in my virtual mansion. And I was like, oh, cool. So at the time we had a laptop, and she was like, come, so I'm looking, and I'm just like, William, look. So we walked through the mansion, and there's my artwork on her in her mansion. And I was like, oh no, this is too cool. She said, oh, wait till you see it on the headset. And I was like, I need a headset. Oh, William, I need a headset. I need a headset every day. I was like, babe, I need a headset. I need a headset. So I think it took a week.
Yeah, about a week, yeah.
This took about a week, and he got me a headset, and I was like, blown away. I was like, hon, you have to see this. You have to see what you could do inside this world. Like, this is a whole next level. And I will tell you that those two things changed the trajectory of what we've been doing. We've been speaking, we were already speaking on technology and blogging and, building websites, but this took us to a whole nother place. So this literally took us around the world. So I say to you, ladies that are listening, if you have vision and you see it, even if you don't see it yet, just keep writing. That's what I would do. I would do it and write it down. The spatial gallery, as an artist, I saw an opportunity for me to share my art. I created an NFT collection, and I was like, well, I have to find a way to share it. I created a spatial gallery. I showed it to him. He was like, that's cool. How do you do that? And once I showed him, that's it. He grabbed it. He took it. He spends more time in the metaverse than I do. So, he took it. He saw the vision for himself, and he grabbed a hold of it, started a whole company behind it. So that's how all of that started.
And it's been a great experience because, whether we're on LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube or whatever, sharing that information because it's important. It's like, it's vital. You hear companies that are pouring billions of dollars into these technologies and collaborations. But our thing is like, our people, our community, you got to see the potential that's there to grow and learn. One part of that is accessibility. You have thousands, if not millions of people that are disabled that physically may not be able to go someplace, and the sites that we're creating for conferences and stuff, if it's not the things that we're creating, but there are opportunities to go travel the world virtually to China and Mexico and, all these other places around the world, Puerto Rico and Haiti and, all the other places, Latin America, that is such an experience and a wealth of information.
And this is really a full circle moment in a lot of ways, because as you mentioned, Aida, and I assume I met you first because you were there first, on Clubhouse, right? Which is, social audio, a lot of educational spaces, folks, who are in education doing different things. And you were definitely kind of the initial, I think, introduction into access and use cases in education in terms of the metaverse that I heard. Like, it was very small conversations around the metaverse at that point in time, kind of in general, as far as what I was hearing, but I heard it loudest from you all for sure, but definitely in the space of education. And then also, of course, in art, which is another thing. Interestingly enough, my wife just completed teaching a unit on art right before the break, the close of 2024. And she came to me and said, oh, I really wish I could just showcase my kids' work. And I was like, I got it. So, they now have a spatial gallery, right? With all our students' artwork and stuff like that. So, yeah, listening to what you're both saying, I'm like, yeah, there's been key points and factors. There's a proof of what you're saying, that this is actually, a feasible thing, number one, for many people. And it works. It has application. So amazing.
Yeah, you have to send us the link so we can connect with them.
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. And they've done some great stuff. But it was a labor of love to be able to put that together. Thinking about what her students are doing, and also just my wife and exposure that she is now getting gravitated towards. So and appreciate you all taking the time to even kind of walk us through.
Oh yeah.
And William, you mentioned a little bit around realizing that basically the power of the technology and how we could begin to grow, as Aida kind of introduced you to it. Can you both talk about if there was like a defining moment? Aida, this probably would have came from you maybe a little bit sooner, of course, where you looked at what you were seeing in technology, with the scope of education, and it kind of hit you, and you thought about, man, this could really change things and have a vast impact, not only on the work that you're doing, but just reach globally, as you all talked about. Do you remember a certain point in time? How did that work in terms of realization?
So I had actually two. The first one was in Allspace VR. They had a like a solar system inside of Allspace VR, and it was mind blowing. So I will say this: I'm openly neurodiverse. I have ADHD. So while I'm super smart, I tell people I'm the most intelligent person you'll ever meet because I'm like all over the place sometimes. So what it did was it fully immersed me, right? There's really cannot, once you're immersed, you really don't have a whole lot of distraction because you're already in the distractive space, right? Like you're already fully immersed. So we were there, and William and I went together into this solar system space. And I think at one point, like they had like this little portal to the sun. And he's like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm at the sun." And I was like, "Just walk toward the sun." And he was walking toward me and I was walking toward him. He's like, "Are you still walking?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm still walking." He's like, "Well, I'm walking too." And I'm like, "Well, maybe we're walking the wrong way." No, it's that the sun is that far away from the earth. And I was like, man, like imagine walking the kids through this, like they can understand, like this is how far the sun is from the earth. Like this is a really big deal. But unfortunately, they sunsetted Allspace VR, which is why we don't use it. It was one of my favorite platforms. I think they sunsetted it like in 2022. So, but there are other spaces. But we got involved with, and shout out to Victory XR. We got involved with VEDX and Victory XR. VEDX actually showed us how we could use it for business, right? And then they also got us involved with Victory XR, and Victory XR is how we got our certification. So we're certified VR educators, and in the process of teaching us how to get this certification, one of the classes they did a few things. The first thing they did is they took us into a chemistry class, and inside the chemistry class there were like Bunsen burners, and you turn on the button and all the burners are there. And then you pick up the chemicals and you light them against the Bunsen burners, and it lights up the right colors. It tells you what the chemicals are. But think about this. Think about our underserved communities. Most of them can't afford chemistry labs. And think about the poor teachers who taught us chemistry, who had to worry about, some fool acting stupid and knocking over a vial and, burning something, blowing up half the chemistry lab. You don't have to worry about that in the metaverse, which I thought was really cool. But the moment that really got me for education was we were on a spaceship. And so imagine, you have to use your imagination here. You're on a spaceship and you're looking out the window and you're in a spaceship and everybody's around you. And outside the window, you can see the earth, right? So, so he hands us a hydrogen atom, and the hydrogen atom's about this big. And, there's the nucleus, and then there's the electron around it. It's one and one. And you can make it bigger if you want. You can pull it all the way as big as you want. You can make it as big as the room as you want. But really, this is the hydrogen atom. So we're all holding it. And he's like, "Do you want to see a Pluton atom? A plutonium atom," I think it was. Yeah. And I was like, "Yeah, I want to see a plutonium atom because this is really cool." And he was like, "Okay." And I'm like, "Okay, well, where's the plutonium atom?" And he's like, "Look outside the window." And the plutonium atom was the size of the earth. And I was like, and I'm telling William, "Look at this. Look at this." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, look at this. Get out of here." I'll never forget that. On an atomic level, the difference between a hydrogen atom and a plutonium atom. And I was like, "This is it." I'm like, "This is it." I said, "This is where we're going to focus. We're going to focus on education. We need our kids to see this because our kids aren't getting it because we're not making it relative for them. They're not understanding. Our kids are very visual. They're very creative." I'm like, we need to get them into the space and let them see for themselves. And then they can not only see, but they can create. So that was it. That was my moment. I don't know his moment, but that was for me. That was the moment.
Yeah, that was amazing. She was like that, or a little bit more extreme. But it was like an aha moment. It's like it's kind of hard to describe. Like you're in an immersive environment. And one of the areas I like is the International Space Station. And it's like you're in space and you're floating there and you hear this big rumble. Now, obviously there's no sound in space, but you hear this big rumble and the International Space Station is behind you. and it comes beside you on your left, and it comes slowly around in front of you, and you see this massive structure of, the creative structure that man built to be in space for about 25 years now. And you see the solar panels, the heat panels, the different modules, and you see the relationship, even though the International Space Station is so large, but comparing it to actual space around you is so tiny. And just the realization that, we can create and build and make some phenomenal stuff, but when you compare it to the vastness of space, it's just like minuscule, but it's so astounding, the engineering of it. And that was one of my aha moments, for the first time seeing that. And again, like with Aida, it's like, how could we get our kids, our young people, our young adults, even our seniors, to actually see the potential of being in space and being able to see this and understand the relevancy. And we kid about it, living in Florida, Kennedy Space Center is about 2.5 hours away from us. But so there should be more education directly related to NASA and SpaceX, because the future goal is to colonize Mars and to colonize the moon. Well, obviously the moon first, but how do you even get there if you can't see what the potential is now? And our kids, they really need to see it. A couple of years ago, we volunteered with a couple of schools, and we would take our Oculus with us and show, the students, this is the future. This is what's coming. This is what you need to be aware of. So just that exposure is important, and just understanding the blending of science, technology, engineering, arts, and math together are really key and important. And the excitement, it's a blast.
That's amazing. And yeah, I like to say that, STEAM, which my master's degree is in, I'd say it's a smoothie, right? You put it all together, you can't really extract and take out the parts, right? Like everything works together. And you made me reflect a little bit, Aida, with talking about the chemistry lab, because my bachelor's degree is in chemistry. So I was thinking about, the labs, and of course people being silly, and then also just access to, the different tools and resources, within space, wherever you're, actually attending school and what have you, and the differences and what that looks like. So yeah, a lot of value. So thank you both for even sharing that. I want to talk a little bit about the work that you're doing, in terms of, education and in business together, when it comes to, building out different, platform systems, curricula, things like that. Can you share some insights about the work that you're doing, and basically what it kind of looks like, and the difference that you're seeing educationally as you all are coming together as business owners, as consultants within the space using technology, and just like, where's the scope and with those projects, what great things have you seen?
Well, starting from, again, the beginning with Clubhouse, we connected with an organization out of New York, a dad's organization. And they asked us in 2021, I believe, 2021, 2022, to teach a class in Nigeria, and to teach it remotely and virtually. And, we went through the stages of, how do we do this? How do we set this up? And the class was actually started after the building that they had in Warri. It was in Warri, Nigeria, was constructed. So they were building a STEM school, STEAM school. So these were elementary students. So during the process, we learned that in Africa, in Nigeria, their educational system is so different that they can finish elementary school for free, but secondary education, you have to pay for it. So you imagine all these kids going through elementary education, learning as much as they can, being tested. But then if their parents don't have the money to send them to secondary education, then they're on their own. They have to figure out like what kind of work they're going to do, how they're going to raise money to go to school. So needless to say, when the school started, we connected with the school, actually did a training for the teachers, how to use Zoom, how to use the laptops that were donated by the organization, how to connect using their wireless connection. So all of this was like from ground to starting teaching classes. And then you understand the perspective of, this is a whole cadre of, foundation to what is the internet? Where is the internet? To like teaching about science, but then using the laptop, a projector, the speakers to teach the teachers first, like train the trainer, and then making that transition from teaching them to teaching the students and getting them to understand we are in the United States of America, several thousands of miles from you, but we're connecting using technology. And the classes, the early class, the kids were like just so amazed that they saw this married couple working together, teaching them, talking to them, learning their names, learning what their names meant, because each of the students, interesting enough, they knew what their name meant. And it was like, oh my gosh, it's like, you have a cultural history about your name, but then teaching them the value and importance of that and then moving on to the academics. We created several curriculums where we started with the basics. What is a computer? What are the parts of the computer? But then we integrated the cultural background as well. Why is it important that you learn? There's 55 nations in Africa. Each African 56 has their own flag. What do the colors of their flag mean? What is the capital? So some things that they did not know, but they realized that they have access from someone else that was in another country and how they can take technology and use it. So needless to say, going through that whole process, we created so many curriculums from the model that we were using with them that we created our business around taking this information and how to be a blessing to building businesses, to being a consulting company as well, to starting out from scratch to where you are now. Just like, oh yeah, you have all this equipment. How do you use it? And one of the helpful aspect was going back to with the school system here in Jacksonville where I work. Those curriculums that we initially started integrating the arts and technology, Aida helped me immensely put that component together, which was the foundation of what we do internationally. And then of course is in Central America as well.
I think the difference too is, so we both have taught higher education, but when it comes to school, it's a little different. William actually worked inside the school and I worked with school. So my focus has been mostly community-based and his was in school before he retired. So two different perspectives. And then also when people say, well, who do you teach? And we'll teach from little to adult because we have background in both and there's a need for both, right? So we started with Nigeria and Warri, then we went Kenya. We met someone from Kenya who was also teaching, similar situation. Because understand, if your family does not have money for secondary education, it's mostly the girls who miss out. So it's mostly the girls who don't get to go on. And what we try to do is as much as possible for the boys and for the girls, teach them, because we're even teaching them about their own continent, right? So they're not, a lot of times, we take for granted what we learn here. We learn about our country. We learn about this. We learn about the other thing. We try our best to teach them as much as possible, expose them as much as possible to light a fire, right? Because I forget the quote, but there is a quote that says, education isn't a destination. It's a fire that gets lit within you. And we try to light that fire so that they want to learn, teaching them that, part of some of the projects that we give them is look around. Like it's not just in your book. Look around your neighborhood, look around, find things, we want you, because, one thing about these kids that we learned is that these kids want to come back and help their own communities. They want to grow. They want to have education, but they're not talking like our kids here. They're not trying to be ballers. They're trying to come back and be doctors and not even doctors, but community workers. They want to help their communities. They want to help. And I know that here in our communities, our kids want to do the same thing. They just don't know how. They don't know what can I do? Because sometimes we think being in a first world country that, our kids feel like, oh, because we do. And this is across the board. It doesn't matter, our kids can be entitled because of what they see on television. It doesn't matter who it is. We've worked in suburbs. We've worked in low income communities. And we have the same thing. What they see on TV, they think it's going to come like this. My own kids, I've had to tell them, sit down and tell me how you're going to do it. Like, write it down on paper, show me. And they're like, oh, it's not as easy as you think. You know, you're not going to just come out of high school and, you know, have your big truck and all that. But if we can get our kids interested, light the fire within them, whether they be here in another country, then even when there's a lull in your life, and all of us have been there, like, man, what am I going to do? If you have that interest, if you have that education, I was just having this conversation this morning with someone. If you start reading, start learning, and that fire starts building within you again, now you start getting direction. You're like, oh, I could do this. I could do this. And I'll tell anyone, do it. Even if you fail, who cares? Do it. Because when you do it, if you fail, you go, man, what can I do different? But if you get it, that's it. All right. Now we go on to the next thing. We go on to the next thing. We teach our kids, whether they be here or in another country, you don't have to be one thing. You can be 5 things. You just can't be 5 things at once. Pick one right now, and then when you're done, you can go on to the next. But you can be more than one thing. You don't have to be stuck in one area. You know, that's the ADHD.
I feel you. You know, it's funny because I have a lot of conversations with folks. You know, a common theme that I've come across, and I've lumped myself into this as well, is you know, that multi-hyphenated nature of a person, which can be, you know, a gift and somewhat of a curse at the same time, as you might have, you know, kind of alluded to, with you're not being able to be all of those things that you actually are all at one time, and being able to navigate, right, and have some focus and emphasis on things. So I appreciate the highlighting there, and also just the encouragement behind it, right? The possibility is there, especially when we're talking about the implementation and use case of a lot of the technologies, which, you know, in a lot of ways now, you know, we're seeing that these things are essentially pathways that, even if you don't necessarily have the financial backing or the resources, a lot of times the access can open up these gateways without necessarily having to be so concerned about, you know, how am I going to pay for this? Where's, you know, funding and support going to come from? But of course, building bigger, those things become considerations and questions of, like, all right, well, what's next? How do I continue? So I'm interested to know, kind of in this trajectory and this journey that you all have been taking, what have been, if any, the challenges that you faced throughout the course of your work, and how have you addressed those challenges and you know, made sure that those outcomes are what you wanted them to be?
Well, interesting. We just had that conversation not too long ago, you know, being business owners too. And I'll just be blunt with me. Being a Black man in the United States, there are a lot of challenges. And one of them is that I have a master's in educational technology, and I've been teaching over 33 years. I've worked with NASA. I've worked with Florida Department of Education. I've worked with many entities and corporations and things, but still trying to get people to think past the color of my skin and that I'm a Black male, that I do know what I'm talking about, and I have the skills and talents and abilities. And importantly enough, that I have a support system that we work together very well. And that's still a challenge even today. So I can, you know, speak to a group or audience of diverse people, but it's still, okay, they have to research every little nook and cranny about me for them to validate me to be in the room or even to take me serious. I blog so much that I share content, and, you know, sometimes it's crickets because it's like, oh, here's another Black man blogging, or here's another African-American trying to, you know, be in technology. So it's not trying, we actually are. And just navigating those lanes and avenues to show that we are, and I think Aida shared this one time before, with the knowledge we have in our background, we are in the top 10% internationally of business owners and educators in these fields. So when we're talking passionately about what we know and what we're experiencing, and we want to share, even for our own people, to take us seriously, because we want our people to benefit globally, internationally, to work in these environments. And there's so many opportunities. That doesn't mean you stop. That means you continue and you push forward, and, you know, you talk and you scream. I've learned from reading books, Malcolm X, Chinua Achebe, African authors, Marcus Garvey, like I've talked in the before, how to prepare yourself for these challenges and to move forward, but still give back to your brothers and sisters and help them along, because you never know who's watching you. You never know who you're motivating and stimulating. You never know who, you're uplifting that's following you. And we've had experiences, people, when we go to conferences that they've said they've been following us for years. And they're just, appreciative of the works that we're doing because we're creating an avenue for those that are following us. So those are some of the challenges.
Yeah, I have to concur. I almost feel like you have to lead with your good foot all the time. We're actually won an award in 2023 for Metaverse education.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So, we almost feel like we have to come in like, look, I won an award. Look, I've actually literally spoken around the world, and we literally have. We've spoken in Australia, Malaysia, different countries in Africa. We taught in Italy. We taught in Greece. We've gone to South and Central America. We've done it. If you asking, like, do we have the qualifications? Absolutely, we have the qualifications. We've taught, we've spoken, we've spoken at technology conferences. And oftentimes it still seems like it's not enough. And that's why I told William, like 2025 is a whole new year. There is absolutely no reason why this should still continue to be a challenge. We, especially in the metaverse space, metaverse AI space, we are in the top 10%. And this is something that we have a proven track record. But I will say that I was just having this conversation this morning with someone about it is a mindset, not just for us, but for others. People have to understand that part of the issue is that we do work with a lot of underserved communities. And that becomes the challenge. It's not just a challenge for us, is that these are communities that don't have a lot of money. And we get it. We get that some communities cannot pay us. So we do it for free. And people take that as like, oh, look, they'll do it for free anyway. But that's not sustainable. And that's the part I was talking to a friend about. I was saying, in the end, businesses have to make money to continue to do what they do. That's the only way they can continue to do what they do. They have to make some kind of income. Otherwise, they can no longer sustain themselves. We willingly work with communities that are underserved because we understand that they just don't have it. When we were talking about the community in Warri, understand, anyone who's thinking about teaching in Africa and a lot of these rural communities, I want you to look up a lot of these cities, these countries, and look up the beautiful metropolitan cities. People see pictures from Africa and they don't understand, like, it's not mud huts. Okay. These are beautiful, vibrant cities. But in some parts of these countries, there are rural communities that not in mud huts, but they don't have the infrastructure. So even our school in Warri, there's plenty of times we can't teach them because the generator isn't working. It's just not working. The internet is down. We worked in Kenya, the same thing. In South Africa, the same thing. Depending on the community you're working with, they just don't have the same kind of infrastructure that we have here. So you're dealing with time limitations. That's a challenge. We have to get up at 3:00 in the morning, sometimes 4:00 in the morning. Sometimes we get up and they're like, sorry, it's not working. Or we're in the middle of teaching a class and everything shuts down and we're like, well, back to bed. So they're challenges, but they're, I tell people there's two different kinds of work. There's that hard work that you hate your work and you come home and you're like, I hate my job. I've been there. I hate my job. And you feel worn out, like every part of your body's like, I don't even want to get up tomorrow to do this. And then there's the hard work where you worked really, really hard and you're tired, but it feels so good. That's how this feels for us. Like when we get up at 3 a.m. and we can get through a whole class, we're like energized. We're like ready. We're like ready to go. It's a different kind of hard work. It's a different kind of challenge. So yes, it's challenging in that respect, that there are limitations and so forth. But if we can get past that first barrier where we don't have to constantly have to qualify ourselves, if we can get past the barrier of showing people this is what we do and get that support, then the rest would be easy. The rest would be, we would do this till God sends us home. Like, we're all right. We'll be like, really, it's already raining. But we would definitely continue to do exactly what we're doing.
And actually, that leads me into my next question. I want to build on that a little bit. So I'm glad that you gave me that segue. I want to ask, and I love asking educators in particular this question. If you had unlimited resources, money is no issue, access, what have you, what would the expansion of your work, right, in that reach, what would that look like if you had everything at your disposal?
Wow. First of all, set up a foundation that's self-supporting financially to continue the works, because if you don't have that financial foundation, that adds an extra stress and struggle. That way you can fund in-person classes, remote and virtual classes. And the way our society is now, it's more virtual and remote, where you may have the curriculum, but you need to make sure you have stable, like Aida was saying, stable internet access, or you need to make sure your curriculum is also trademarked so people don't steal it. You make sure that you can train others so that you don't have to continuously do it yourself. And you're building a community of business owners and educators. When we say education, it's not just the teaching in the classroom, but we like to say you're teaching the skills, talents, and abilities to be, one, an entrepreneur, two, building as a business owner for the future. Education cannot, well, let me rephrase that. Education doesn't really teach that. So our goal is to teach how what you learn can help you create an environment where you're a business owner and an entrepreneur. So you can build on that and you can help your family and you can help your community. The other part of that is being multilingual. We do so much work now in Central and South America and in expanding in some ways that there's similar situations in Central America and South America. And there's kids down there that are just as talented, just as feisty and creative as the students here, young people here in the United States. So you want to make sure it's inclusive as well. And you want to make sure it's a welcoming environment with all the tools, translation, tools, resources. If you want to hire interns, to be able to pay them. So that collaboration and conglomeration of resources that is sustainable, which is important, adaptable to the environment, and I like to say multifunctional, because you want to be able to hire those that are excelling and give them an opportunity to give back and be a part of what you're building and designing and growing.
Yeah, I would have to say I agree. If money was not an issue, we would do more of what we're doing, and then make more of who we are, built, training more people to do what we're doing. You have to have a heart for, and I'm not, I will say this, I'm not building us up in any way in that respect. I believe that, God gives you a heart for a certain thing. And if that's part of your purpose, then you go for that. My faith is what drives me. Love Built Life was based on ministry. So when we got together, that was another fit for us. So finding others with that heart, with a desire, it's never been about chasing the money, right? So if you meet other people who are like, yeah, it'd be great to get paid, but I would do this anyway, that's the people that you want on your team. And we would love to train more people around the world. So that's what I would do. If money, and I'm sure he would too, because we love to travel. And it's so funny. We just talked about that the other day, that every time we've gone to Costa Rica, people are like, ooh, Costa Rica. But we've only been on the beach of Costa Rica one time. And that was only because a friend of ours said, we'll take you to the beach. And we're like, oh, okay, well, while we're here, we might as well. We've always been downtown. And if you've ever been to downtown Costa Rica, it could be a little sketch. At 5:00, everything closed down for a reason, okay? But we go for purpose, right? So we're going so that we can teach, right? We're going with this purpose. And that's great for me. I'm fine with that. I can learn about the local culture. We can visit local museums, which is what we do. If I get to the beach, great. But if I don't care about that. That's not what I came for. So if money was no object, it would be more traveling, more teaching, and everything he said, which would include scholarships for kids who are really excelling and really showing potential, and then setting up schools that these kids can come to, that they can come and they can learn and they can grow. Because when William is talking about teaching them an entrepreneurial mindset, we're not just talking adults. We teach that to little kids too. We're teaching them from very young to have a mindset of an entrepreneur. And I tell this to parents because, all of us, well-meaning parents, I have 4 kids, I have 5 grandchildren. When, we send them to school, we want them to learn, we want them to get a good job. But understand that there's a lot of things they're being taught today that in 5 to 10 years won't even exist. So the job that you're trying to prepare them for may not even be here in 5 or 10 years. They got to have an entrepreneurial mindset. They got to know how to pivot when it's time to pivot. They got to know how to take the skills that they learn, rework them, wrap them around and do them a different way based on what's happening in their world today. And because things are changing so fast. I mean, think about where we started, going through full circle. When William and I started, pandemic, 2020, we were on Clubhouse, right? It was a voice platform. We started out just talking. We were going to just do speaking because we were already speakers. We couldn't go out and speak. We'll speak online. So we were speakers. And then the Metaverse came. Started learning about Metaverse. Then we started teaching about the blockchain and NFTs. NFTs started blowing up. And then that came out this little thing called AI, which blew up. Okay, now we got to learn about AI, right? I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm like, whatever it is, that's what I'm going to learn about. So then we spent a lot of time learning about AI. So, I became an AI artist. Now, okay, Metaverse is coming back. You have to keep switching, but you have to have a mindset to be able to see, going back to what we started in the beginning, the thread. What is the common story throughout all of this? And how do we pull it all together and create a company that's sustainable, that can move forward, not just us, but we want to teach our kids that. We want to teach our adults. So when we're teaching kids, we're teaching the parents, like I said, because there are things they're learning today, jobs they're doing today that will not exist in 5 or 10 years. And if you don't know how to change up, you'll be lost.
The CEO of NVIDIA, we listen to a lot of his videos, and the gentleman, Dr. Lee, that's into AI and robotics, they always share what Aida was saying. You have to be able to learn new technologies. You don't have to be an expert, but learn them and adapt and pivot as the ecosystems change. Because if you don't, you're going to be left behind. You're going to be stuck. And not to pick on anybody, but we see what happened to Blockbuster. They did not pivot or change. They went out of business. And they have plenty of time to adapt and change. So when we're listening to CEO Hung and taking notes and listening, we take those elements too and teach the kids, hey, these are people that are in these industries. NVIDIA, if you remember, started out in game design and game development. Then they branched out into accelerating graphics, and they branched out into accelerating microchips. Now they're into AI. The interesting thing, and this is just a short part, they started when they were developing chips. If you know about servers are in a room. And most of the time, to keep the servers from overheating, the room is so cold, it's almost below zero. So those chips are so powerful now. Now they're liquid cooled. They're immersed in water, and the water is a mixture of chemicals. But the chemicals are so cold, it keeps the chips and the equipment from overheating because they're running those chips that are now running robots, communication systems around the world, and a lot of other stuff. So again, like I was saying, you see the progression and you try to keep up with it and learn from it because it does influence you.
And there's one thing that stood out to me that I always say now is the belief used to be that we were preparing students for jobs that don't exist yet. And I like to say now kind of a pushback even on that is we're preparing them to create the jobs that don't exist yet.
Right.
So it is a different frame of thinking and a shift that is, I think it can be difficult for a lot of people to grasp and begin to adopt. But, we know, right? Like you kind of don't necessarily have much of a choice because it's here, right? We can't even say it's still on its way. It's here.
It's here.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask educators. And I don't even know if I can ask the same question anymore. That's how much things have shifted. But the question was, will AI replace teachers? And of course, we're seeing things now. So I think I need to evolve my question a little bit and just leave it kind of open and say, tell me your thoughts, AI as it pertains to
Oh,
instruction.
wait. So I'm sure he's gonna go somewhere. I'm gonna say,
No, where I'm
hey.
going to go. Okay, well, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I have not. At at first when AI came, it was scary. It looked like it was gonna take over a lot of things, and it really will. It really will. It will eliminate a lot of jobs. It will also create a whole lot of new jobs. But what I always say is there's some things AI cannot do. It can't be you. Going back to that narrative. It doesn't have your story. It doesn't know you. It's not you. And what my goal is, so Love Built Life is a little different company than MetaverseWP. Love Built Life is a coaching company. So as an artist, I do art coaching. I teach about creativity. Number one, it will not replace human creativity. It learns from human creativity, but it cannot replace human creativity. We are the creators. We were created to create. So it can create things, but we can create way more things if we allow ourselves. Because the more you create, the more open it opens up within you to create more. But the other thing is, we have something that AI cannot have, does not have, will not have. We have heart, which means that we have soft skills that it cannot replace. And in the end, do you want a computer teaching your kid, or do you want me teaching your kid? Because I got something that computer does not have. It may have knowledge way beyond my knowledge, and as a matter of fact, I'll tell you what, if I am teaching your kid, I will be using it to help me to teach your kid. But the heart that I have, the compassion that I have, the love that I have for my students, whether they be children or adults, the love that I have for them, the desire that I have for them to grow, yeah, I cannot replace that. Now, is it useful for those who need companionship to just have something to talk to? Sure. But when it comes to heart, there is something called the Eliza effect when people get involved with their AI bots and so forth. People don't understand that attachment comes from you, not from the AI. The AI isn't attached. You're the one who's creating that attachment from what's inside of you. So long story short, my opinion is at some point we will realize I don't want cold and hard. I want soft and warm, and that only comes through human interaction. So this can be a tool, just like the computer, just like the calculator, just like everything else. But when it comes to the bottom line, I want human interaction, and that's my opinion. See, he's all of that.
Story. Yeah, I have a story. I'm originally from Philly. So, Phillyites, we always have a story and, we elaborate it the more we talk. But the story is my mom, and we go back to moms, since I was the oldest, always had me sit down with her and watch Star Trek and all these space express. Space 1999, yeah, I'm going back. Star Trek, 2001 Space Odyssey. So there was this episode of Star Trek, and she was like, Derek, come here and sit down and watch this with me. And it's like, oh, Mom. But I sat down and I listened. And imagine the Enterprise is going through space. And it's late in the afternoon, and Captain Kirk is walking through the Enterprise. It's his ship. He's captain. Nothing's going on. No Klingons or aliens or anything. He's just chilling out, talking to everybody. So he walks into this room, and the door opens. And we all know there's special effects. Somebody's making a sound or whatever in the pulleys. He goes through the door. It closes back. We're like, oh, that's cool technology. Well, yeah, now we have it in Walmart and Target and all that kind of stuff. But he walks around the room. The room is sterile. There's nothing on the walls. You're walking around the room. There's nothing there. No character or anything. There's a lady in the room. She's walking around, but she's a facilitator. She's a teacher. So he looks at these kids looking at these computer screens. So we're talking about like 1970s. But at that time, they don't have computers like that in the 1970s. So it's the show. It's the projection of what the future is. So the kids are looking, and there's lights and there's sounds beeping and stuff and everything. And he's looking at the little kids. Then he asked the teacher, well, how are the students doing? How are they doing? And she's like, Captain, if they're learning their lessons, they're doing very good. And he goes, that's good to know. That's good. Then he turns around and leaves. But the message that was being sent back in the 1970s was, this is the future of education for those that are watching and understand how technology will influence all of us. And it goes back to what Aida was saying. What type of teacher do you want teaching your kids? The type of teacher that is applying and using tech to help teach them and instruct them and help them with creativity and innovation Or do you want them sitting in front of a computer and that's all they're doing? And that for me was transformative because we have to be very careful and have a mindset. What do we want for our kids? And as a teacher, I'll tell parents all the time, never forget you have rights. Your right is to be, your right is to be able to go into the school and talk to the teacher, talk to the administrator, and talk to anyone that you need to get information and help your child grow. They cannot turn you away. They cannot deny you. But again, your mentality has to be, I'm preparing my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren for the future. And I'm so pumped up. I'm ready to go back to teaching again. So anybody needs a teacher, hey, let me know, reach out. We can do a remote, virtual, metaverse, AI, all of that. Because it's so exciting to, apply all of this. And you cannot not want to go that way.
Yeah, I had to ask because, I mean, of course, just even in the state of where we are right now, seeing in, recent news, deploying AI teachers and a lot of the tools and resources and things like that. I mean, we talked a lot about, the state of education. We delved into, AI and our thoughts and feelings around that. I think we're all in agreement there, especially, me being, the father of a, almost kindergartner. Right?
Right.
I mean, I'm on board with you all. So I want to kind of leave this conversation. We've gone into your background, experience, the work that you're doing globally in education, and how the technology has been infused and what you're seeing. What I really want to know at the end of this all is, what legacy do you hope that your work leaves on the world? And that can be in general as people, but also, when we're talking about technology and your footprint there, like what is the big lofty idea?
I would say for me, just being a role model and mentor, that even with tech, it's a tool. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. You don't learn about just one thing, but it's a tool to help you grow. It's a great equalizer. In my blogs, I use AI and Perplexity, and a couple of other ones as I'm writing to give different perspectives. So teaching our young people how to use it as a tool, blending AI with blending with arts and blending with math and blending with science is important. The works that we do are used for years to come. We're a blended family. So, we teach our kids each and every day about, look at the things that we're doing out of passion and purpose, not necessarily like I was saying, out, just for money, but look at how you can influence the world in a positive way. And seeing our connections in Central America and Africa and Canada and across Europe and India and the places that we're doing works, we just want to leave a legacy of love, unity and collaboration. And like Aida said it eloquently, our faith is in what we're doing to share, our faith as well. And being believers and followers of Christ, there's a responsibility that is with that, we care and love everybody. So it doesn't matter your religious background, your cultural background, we're here to help you and educate you and teach you. But the responsibility is to create that legacy that those that are coming up behind us, have the same opportunities, if not more, because of the works, and continue to take advantage of the opportunities. I want to be able to do this well into however, the Lord has us do it. If it's the 100, hey, that's great. Take this time to do that and learn from it and guide, young people like yourself, because you got, your little one coming up. And we need to be able to say, hey, William and Aida, this is what you're doing. But in our case, with our kids that are older, Cedric, this is what he's doing. But he's got Black AI media. He's growing and developing. He has an international global following. This is connect with him. So we're all working together to do that.
It's funny you say that, because I guess I never really thought of it as a global legacy. That would be nice, but I have to be honest, maybe it's more selfish on my part. Like, how am I influencing my kids and my grandkids? Like, how am I, what is it that we're doing that's going to leave them with a drive to do more, right? The people that I'm working with. So my goal was always, when I started Love Built Life years ago, was to share the love of God through art, right? Just through being myself. And, it grew into technology. It grew into what we're doing. And so if more and more people can see that, wow, you can be a believer and you can still do what you do and be who you are and be a believer, that for me is more important than anything. But ultimately for me, I'm not going to lie. It comes down to my faith. When I get to that place, and I'm going to get emotional, y'all, I want to hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. That's it. When people say to me, how is it you've done so much? Like, you've done this, you've done that, you've traveled the world, you've done it. I keep saying yes. If God says, I want you to go over there, I'm like, okay. I want you to do this. Okay. I want to leave this world empty. Everything that was poured into me, I want to pour it right back out. Because when I was young and living in Brooklyn, I didn't think I dreamt about this world. I told William when I was a little girl, I used to practice in front of the mirror doing interviews. I would practice in front of the mirror, speaking in front of people and sharing my ideas and, whatever. And then, I would, practice interviewing with people and they would go, well, what do you think about this? I would practice, but my community where I grew up, that didn't seem really plausible to me. So I look at this now and I'm like, wow, God gave me a vision of this a long time ago. So that's what I try to cultivate in others. Like, the Bible says without a vision, not to be religious, but, the Bible says without a vision, the people perish. I'm trying to teach people how to have vision. I'm trying to show them, like, if you can think it, if he shows it to you, puts it in you, you can do it. It can happen. You just got to keep going. Even if it doesn't look that way, keep going. Because a lot of my life, it did not look like this. And so if I can leave that behind, if someone, I used to teach foster kids, especially about money. And I used to tell them, like, if you don't manage your money, your money will manage you. I said, and one or two things are going to happen today. Either you're going to listen to Miss Aida and you're going to say, I'm so glad I listened to Miss Aida. Or you're not going to listen to Miss Aida and you're going to be like, man, I wish I had listened to Miss Aida. So if at the end of all of this, if I could be so blessed to leave a legacy that people go, I'm so glad I listened, yeah, then it'd be all worth it.
Well, this has been like amazing on a lot of different levels. Just to sit with both of you and have this conversation and just go a little bit further, like in terms of, having a relationship with people, being in community, seeing the work that you're doing, but even just building further and being able to sit down and capture this. Right? This is really important for myself and for anybody coming across this interview, or anybody that approaches you all later on. I think that this is a really pivotal moment, and I just appreciate the work that you're both doing. And I really, I just find a lot of value and strength in the fact that you all are able to do it together. And I just look forward to the future and what it holds. So thank you both so much for all the work that you've done, all the work that you will do, are doing, and just taking the time to have this conversation with me and sit down and joining in Black AI Media. Before we close out, I want to go ahead and open up space too. Let folks know where they can connect with you, where they can, be a part of your work, where people can become clients, work with you in a business capacity, and just support, the efforts that you all are putting out.
So you can find me on social media at Love Built Life, just about anywhere. I'm not on Clubhouse as much as I was. I'm actually on a new one. It's called Chatter Social. So I'll be doing a lot of work there. But you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, at Love Built Life. That's BUILT. So it's Love Built Life. Yeah. And I'm going to be honest with y'all. If you're calling about coaching, I'll reach out right away. But if it's about technology stuff, reach out to him, because he's the real good. He's good at the follow-up stuff. So if you received an email or a phone call or something, it was probably from him. He's much better at that than I am.
Well, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. My brand is My Quest to Teach. That's my blog. So if you go to myquesttoteach.com, you can see a lot of the writings. If there's someone that's interested in seeing how the writing process. I write from my heart. So, you know, I may use AI a little bit for content, but I write what's on my mind, what's on my spirit, and share it. The business is MetaverseWP, or if you go to MetaverseWP.com, the site Aida created for me that posts the business aspect of it as well. My Quest to Teach has been around for a number of years, and it's growing with the help of Aida and the arts and everything, but it's centered around integrating technology. And I always say, you know, I'm a former physical education teacher. I taught health and PE for 15 years. During that time, I guess it was percolating and building to, you know, finding the right person in my life to, you know, to inspire me. And it's true. It is. So you have to give, like I said, you have to give props to your partner and, you know, what they contribute, because it's not all about you. You can't learn everything to do what you're doing to continue to grow. But also My Quest to Teach, MetaverseWP, and, you know, just Google William and Aida and some, you know, these spaces will come up.
Yeah. I mean, along those lines, you know, people always say, you know, for the exposure, I'm like, Google William and Aida Jackson. We're plenty exposed. We are plenty exposed at this point. We thank you, but yeah, we look forward to working with people. And hopefully soon we'll be teaching a new set of classes actually with Elroy University. I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully we'll be coming out soon. So yeah.
Well, we look forward to continuing to see what you all have going on. And you know, you got the backing of Black AI Media and of course me as an individual. So thank you both very much.
Yeah.
Love it. For everybody who is tuning in to Narrative, the Road to 100, thank you for continuing to come back and support, catching the interviews, checking out the resources, all of the information on the site, following the campaigns, including I Am the Algorithm, and of course, Narrative, the Road to 100, which we're doing here. Make sure that you continue to tap in, check out everything that's available, including the merchandise and all the cool stuff, and be a part of that. And at the same time, make sure that if you heard anything during this interview from William and or Aida, that you do connect with them and just continue to support. But with that, until next time, we'll leave it there. And again, both of you, appreciate you. Keep doing the great work. And much love to everybody out there. Peace.